Hare Krishna, welcome to this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class. Thank you, Shruti Sagar Group, for the opportunity to be here and to speak today. We'll begin with the auspicious invocation. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Together.
One should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Sri Vyasa, the author. By regular attendance to classes on the Bhagavatam, and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, whose praise and transcendental songs is established as the irrevocable practice.
Om Jnanatmirandasya Dhananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So we are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, second canto, second chapter, and our focus verse is text 22. So it's 2222.
Word for it.
So, does anyone remember what we talked about on Tuesday with Prabhupada Priya? Okay. So,
I'm picking it up as my brain tries to work it out. I think it was about the how that like we should the impersonalist should focus rather on the universal form of the Lord. It was like
Yeah. And we talked about impersonal, we were talking about these austere and intense meditation practices where you sit on your heel and you bring your light bear to the top of your head. So we're going to continue on this vein of the soul's journey to Godhead. But this, you can call it the scenic route. So let's, can someone please read text 22, and I think we'll read till 32.
However, O king, if the yogi maintains a desire for improved material enjoyments, like transference to the topmost planet Brahmaloka, or the achievement of the Eightfold Perfections, travel in outer space with the Vahayasas, or a situation in one of the millions of men, then he has to take away with him the materially molded mind and senses. So we'll come back to that.
The transcendentalists are concerned with the spiritual body. As such, by the strength of their devotional service, austerities, mystic power, and transcendental knowledge, their movements are unrestricted, within and beyond the material worlds. The food workers or the gross materialist can never move in such an unrestricted movement.
O king, when such a mystic passes over the Milky Way by illuminating Sushumna to reach the highest planet, Ramaloka, he goes first to Vaishvanara, the planet of the deity of fire, wherein he becomes completely cleansed of all contaminations. And thereafter he still goes higher, to the circle of Shishumara, and relate with the Lord Dhrstadyumna.
This Shishumara is the pivot for the turning of the complete universe, and it is called the navel of Vishnu, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. The yogi alone goes beyond the circle of Shishumara and attains the planet Maharloka, where purified saints like Prabhu enjoy a duration of life of 4,300,000,000 solar years. This planet is worshipable even for the saints who are transcendentally situated.
At the time of the final devastation of the complete universe, the end of the duration of Brahma's life, a flame of fire emanates from the mouth of Ananta, from the bottom of the universe. The yogi sees all the planets of the universe burning to ashes, and thus he leaves for Satyaloka by airplanes used by the great purified souls. The duration of life in Satyaloka is calculated to be
11 trillion.
15,480,000,000,000 years.
In that planet of Satyaloka, there is neither bereavement, nor old age, nor death. There is no pain of any kind, and therefore there are no anxieties, save that sometimes, due to consciousness, there is a feeling of compassion for those unaware of the process of devotional service, who are subjected to unsurpassable miseries in the material world.
After reaching Satyaloka, the devotee is specifically able to be incorporated fearlessly by the subtle body in an identity similar to that of the gross body. And one after another, he gradually attains stages of existence from earthly to watery, fiery, flowy, glowing, and airy, until he reaches the ethereal stage.
The devotee thus surpasses the subtle objects of different senses like aroma by smelling, the palate by tasting, vision by seeing forms, touch by contacting, the vibrations of the ear by ethereal identification, and the sense organs by material activities.
The devotee, thus surpassing the gross and the subtle forms of coverings, enters the plane of egoism. And in that status, he merges the material modes of nature, ignorance, and passion. In this point, neutralization and thus reaches egoism and goodness. After this, all egoism is merged in the Mahatattva, and he comes to the point of pure self-realization.
Only the purified soul can attain the perfection of associating with personality of passion and complete bliss and satisfaction in his constitutional state. Whoever is able to renovate such devotional affection is never again attracted by this material world, and he never returns.
Your Majesty, Maharaj Parikshit, know that all that I have described can reply to your proper inquiry is just according to the version of the Vedas, and it is eternal truth. This was described personally by Lord Krishna unto Brahma, with whom the Lord was satisfied upon being properly worshipped.
Okay, so we'll go back to text 22. So just to summarize what we heard, the soul, this is actually, it's really amazing. We hear enlightenment, we hear about attaining these higher dimensions, this higher consciousness, and it can kind of be a vague concept often, but as we find in the Vedic literatures, these ancient scriptures, it's actually very detailed, it's very scientific. It's not just, oh, and then they were at this, then they were self-realized. It describes how the soul goes through these different stages, these different states of being. It goes from earth, well, not the soul, but the body gradually leaves as the pure soul continues. And yeah, such a vivid description of how the soul rises to the higher planets and it sees the world burning below in the time of devastation. So as we were talking about earlier, this is you could say the long route to God, to Krishna. So we can start with the text. This is ancient Sanskrit, and so spiritual sound vibration, even if you don't exactly know the meaning, it isn't material. It pierces through all our coverings and goes to the heart. So the reason we chant this is because it's very powerful. This is the original language that this text is written in. Prayasyan Mripaparameshyam Sanam Utayad Viharam Ashtadipatyam Gunasanivaye Gachan Manasendriyaischa Chant.
Prayasyan Mripaparameshyam Vaihaya Sanam Utayat Viharam Ashtadipatyam Gunasanivaye Sahaiva Gachan Manasendriyaischa
Prayasyan Nritaparameshyam Sanam Utayat Viharam Ashtadipatyam Gunasanivaye Gachan Manasendriyaischa
Yadi prayasyan Nritaparameshyam Vaihaya Viharam Ashtadipatyam Gunasanivaye Gachan Manasendriyaischa.
All together.
Yadi, however, prayasyan maintain his desire. Nirva, O king, Parameshyam, governing the planets of the material world. Vaihaya of the beings known as Vaihaya, which it is said, that what is, Viharam, place of enjoyment, Ashtadhipatyam, lording over the eightfold achievements, Gunasanivaye, in the world of three worlds and stations.
Along with Eva, certainly, Gachan should go.
Manasa, accompanied by the mind, Cha also.
Translation of purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Translation. However, O king, if a yogi maintains a desire for improved material enjoyments, like transference to the topmost planet, Brahmaloka, or the achievement of the eightfold perfections, travel in outer space with the Vaihayasas, or a situation in one of the millions of planets, then he has to take away with him the materially molded mind and senses. Purport. In the upper status of the planetary system, there are facilities through thousands and thousands of times greater for material enjoyment than in the lower planetary systems. The topmost planetary systems consist of planets like Brahmaloka and Dhruvaloka, the pole star, and all of them are situated beyond Maharloka. The inhabitants of those planets are empowered with eightfold achievements of mystic perfection. They do not have to learn and practice the mystic processes of yoga perfection and achieve the power of becoming small like a particle, anima siddhi, or lighter than a soft feather, laghima siddhi. They do not have to get anything and everything from anywhere and everywhere, prapti siddhi, to become heavier than the heaviest, mahima siddhi, to act freely, even to create something wonderful or to annihilate anything at will, ishitva siddhi, to control all material elements, vashitva siddhi, to possess such power as will never be frustrated in any desire, prakamya siddhi, or to assume any shape or form, even whimsically, desire, kamavasasita siddhi. All these expediencies, thank you, are as common as natural gifts for the inhabitants of those higher planets. They do not require any mechanical help to travel in outer space, and they can move and travel at will from one planet to another planet to any other planet within no time. The inhabitants of Earth cannot move even to the nearest planet except by mechanical vehicles like spacecraft. But the highly talented inhabitants of such higher planets can do everything very easily. So please read the next paragraph.
Since a materialist is generally inquisitive to experience what is actually in such planetary systems, he wants to see everything personally. As inquisitive persons tour all over the world to gain direct local experience, the less intelligent transcendentalist similarly desires to have some experience of those planets about which he has heard so many wonderful things. The yogi can, however, easily fulfill his desire by going there in the present materialistic mind and senses. The prime inclination of the materialistic mind is to lord it over the material world, and all the cities mentioned above are features of domination over the world. The devotees of the Lord are not ambitious to dominate a false and temporary phenomenon. On the contrary, a devotee wants to be dominated by the supreme predominator, the Lord. A desire to serve the Lord, the supreme predominator, is spiritual or transcendental, and one has to attain this purification of the mind and the senses to get admission into the spiritual kingdom. With the materialistic mind, one can reach the best planet in the universe, but no one can enter into the kingdom of God. Senses are called spiritually purified when they are not involved in sense gratification. Senses require engagement, and when the senses are engaged totally in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, they have no chance to become contaminated by material infections.
All right, thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, so who has ever seen Srila Prabhupada's book called Easy Journey to Other Planets? So this is what we're talking about today. And if you go back to the translation, it talks about how if a meditator, a yogi, they have some material desires, they can actually fulfill it, but something that they will have to take away with them is the materially molded mind and senses. So this is a very interesting topic. You can look at yourself, look at your body, and the Bhagavad Gita talks about how there's two bodies, actually. There's our physical body, made of earth, water, fire, air, ether. And then there's the subtle body, which is made of the mind, the intelligence, and the ego, the false ego. So this is actually a very interesting and scientific point that leads into reincarnation, is that we are creating our next body currently. The subtle body, it's made of our intelligence, it's made of our mind, it's made of our ego, and the gross body follows that. I remember Mother Loka gave this example of someone who's very passionate. You know, they're always like, their consciousness is always in this passion, trying to attain something. Their body starts to morph to follow their subtle body. So this is it's a gross example. You know, someone may, actually, I've been, if you wake me up at a certain time, my gross body is withered and because our consciousness determines the physical reality that we see. Krishna, he says, whatever state of consciousness we are in, that state we will attain in the next body. So, yeah, that's a very interesting concept if we think about it. We are currently crafting our next destination. So, what does that mean? Krishna, he's saying that whatever we fix our minds to, that is what we start to become like. So, I'm trying to think. There's the example of animals, you could say. Krishna says if you live in a certain way, you can become an animal in your next life. And some might think of that as a punishment. Oh no, he's so cruel, he's turning people into animals, But actually, our desires are sending out what we want to become. If we want to be expert at sleeping, well, there's no better body than that of a bear. If we want to be expert at, ripping people apart, then a tiger works. So this is how it works. And yeah, in the verse, Krishna says, Yam yam vapi smaram bhavam. Whatever state of being we're in, that state we will attain. So I was hearing from Sridhar Maharaj that it's not exactly like, you just hit the pause button and whatever you're thinking about at that moment when you die, that's what you become. But it's more so like, he gave this example of a cash register. When you hit the total button, so at the end of the day, what was your consciousness in this life? At the end of the day, what was your accumulated memories? We call them samskaras. What were the deepest impacting memories you had in your life? What were your biggest dreams? What were your goals? And when all of that is totaled at the end, that's how you get this body we're in. So this actually, it explains so much. It explains why we look like the way we look like. Because we desired this body. Sometimes you think, some people's body, they need a lot more sleep. That's because maybe they were really sleep deprived in their previous life, and they were like, oh, I just wish I could sleep more. So we do have to be a little careful what we fuel this subtle body with, because as we see, when we maintain a desire for improved material enjoyments, that's where we will go, is to a place to enact those desires, to fulfill them. So I give this example often in Dallas, where I'm from. If you walk one block down, it's like the ghetto, it's like you're in danger, get away from those big pit bulls. If you walk another block down, you're like, wow, these houses are so pretty, and they're so huge and palatial. So that's how this material world is too. Is that there are places with very extravagant sense enjoyment, and there are places which are very difficult for our senses, which are very tough. And the way we get to either of those, as we're seeing, is through this subtle body. This subtle body carries us to those destinations, depending on what we desire. So what's the solution? What's the key? We have to be Krishna conscious, because when we're Krishna conscious, as we heard from Srila Prabhupada, we go to the Krishna planet. We go to wherever Krishna is. And how do we be Krishna conscious? We be Krishna conscious by remembering Krishna, by meditating. We chant. Most of us, we chant for a certain time of the day. And so the purpose of this is to create our next body, which is comprised of service. Our next body is comprised of Krishna consciousness, so that we can associate with Krishna after we leave this body. We were reading that we have to be purified. in order to attain these higher levels of consciousness. We have to be purified in order to associate with the Supreme. And so this is how we purify ourselves, is by purifying the consciousness, by chanting, by hearing the class in the morning, by reading. This is how we create our spiritual body. And so, yeah, we take shelter of our spiritual experiences. Oh, that kirtan, that kirtan was like, it was like a landmark in my life, you know. Oh, this spiritual pilgrimage I went on. Oh, these friends that I have that remind me of Krishna, that bring me closer to Krishna. These are what I attach my bhava. This is what my consciousness clings to the most. And hopefully when we leave our body, this is what we remember. This is what we take shelter of. So that sounds very nice, you know, just chant Hare Krishna and read, and we'll go back to Godhead. But there's a small issue. We are very passionate. We're all young. I want to take over the world. I want to, you know, do this and do that and see this and see that. Like we're seeing here, the yogi, he wants to see the universe. He doesn't go directly to Krishna. He wants to see, okay, what about this planet? Okay, let me see this planet. Okay, let me check out over here. So we're very passionate in this way. You know, if I told you sit down and just chant till you're enlightened, don't do anything else. Just sit down, keep meditating. Maybe we could last an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, maybe a day, but we're going to have to engage in some activity. So this is what Srila Prabhupada would call practical samadhi, practical trance, practical meditation. So that's what we see at Krishna Lunch, is that we turn our life into a meditation. Everything in our life is helping us form this spiritual body of service. So whenever we wash the pots, whenever we clean the floor, whenever we give someone a scoop of halava at Krishna Lunch, it may seem like an ordinary thing. It may seem like it's on the physical platform, but beneath the surface, our body is getting constituted of service. Our body is becoming a vessel of service as we continue to serve. So this is Srila Prabhupada's mercy to us, that we don't have to sit in some woodland, you know, hut for years meditating, but actually by engaging in these meaningful spiritual activities, we can have the same result. We can purify our body, purify our consciousness, and come to this enlightened stage. And then when we're at this enlightened stage, we hear about the 6 Goswamis. Their body, their subtle body was already completely spiritual, their physical body too. When we have completely spiritualized ourselves, it's almost as if we're already in the spiritual dimension. We're already with Krishna. The lines begin to blur. We see Krishna everywhere. We see everything as Krishna, because that's the consciousness that we've cultivated. So this is the goal of the bhakti yogi. We don't want to take with us this ego that we've cultivated. We don't want to take with us this mind. We don't want to take with us our material senses. We have to gradually leave that behind. We have to accept our new identity of spiritual existence. We have to accept our new identity as a servant. So that is what I have for today. If anyone has any comments or questions. Narada Muni Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Krishna. Thank you for your class. So I've heard before that as we do service, our subtle body actually like kind of dissolves a little. But you were talking more about art. We take on a subtle body that is aimed towards service. And so I was just wondering if you could clear up that like misconception. What is more of an accurate in the picture?
Yeah, thank you. So if we look at Krishna, Krishna doesn't have, okay, this is Krishna's soul, this is Krishna's subtle body, and this is Krishna's physical body. Krishna isn't like that. And in the spiritual reality, we actually aren't like that either. So while I did say we were developing a new body, that body actually isn't subtle, it isn't physical, it's purely spiritual. There's no difference between that body and ourself. We are more so uncovering our actual nature, uncovering our actual existence. And this subtle body that we have currently that thinks, oh, I am a, American male, that dissolves. We start to realize that's not actually my eternal nature. There's going to be a time when I die and I'm not an American male anymore. So this is something we'll have to give up. At some point in our lives, we're going to have to give up this idea that, I'm a brahmachari, I'm a monk, I am, a young monk. So does that clear anything up?
Yeah, I have a follow-up. Totally got it.
I have one back, and then we'll be taking us through.
Thanks for the class. It's interesting to see you not joking all the time. I was waiting for jokes. Okay, so in relation to the beginning of the class, 2 days ago we went to springs and we were swimming. And usually when I go to the water, I put off my tulasi neck beads because they tend to kind of disappear in the water often. And then and the water I met some Matajis, like senior, and then they start they were thinking that I'm some, got to the boat, and started like preaching to me, and then they realized I'm a devotee. It happened to me a few times actually in life, when Dhrstadyumna Brahmachari was trying to sell me books. My philosophy was hidden behind my it wasn't visible. It was interesting, and then they realized that I was like a devotee, and they asked, "What about your tulas?" Like this, and I explained. They said, "Don't you know that Yamadutas can come anytime and grab you?" And I said, I answered, "Yes, I understand that concept, but at the same time, don't you think that after 27 years of trying to serve Krishna devotees, I have more chances than to be taken by Yamadutas?" And they said, "No, it's like that. Like it's written, it's said by authorities. So what do you think about that?" I mean, it's kind of, for me, it's a common sense, but for them, that was like, it's written somewhere or said by somebody like authority, and it's like that. If you don't wear neck beads and Yamadutas come, or the time that comes, Yamadutas will come because you are not wearing neck beads. So, I was just thinking about it. It wasn't that I was so much affected by it, but at the same time, I was thinking like when we present Krishna consciousness, it can be a little bit interesting, at least to say interesting for like new people, outsiders looking at our situation and like, being at least confused by explanations. So what do you think about it?
Thank you. So, as we heard from Krishna, he says, Sarvadharman pratyaja, mamikam sharanam vraja, ham tvam sarvapapabhyo mokshayishyami ma shucha. So he says, at the end of the day, abandon everything else and just surrender unto me. And we heard also earlier that whatever state of being, that state we will attain. So, kind of what we were talking, I guess, to respond to your question, Krishna is looking for our surrender. He's not looking for what religion are we. He's not looking what culture we've adopted. He's not looking what even what practices we've adopted. He's looking for that love. He's looking for that bhava, looking for that consciousness. So these things, shaving my head, wearing orange, wearing neck beads, wearing tilak, you could say, oh, they're surface level, oh, they're superficial. And that wouldn't exactly do them justice either, because many things are meant to support us. They're meant to be a support to us gaining this new identity as a servant. And certain things like wearing robes and shaving my head, it helps with simplicity. But Krishna, he's not looking and saying, okay, how many hairs? Or, oh, those beads fell off, you're in trouble now. These things are more for us than exactly they're for Krishna. They're to remind us. Srila Prabhupada would say that our beads are like our dog collar. So Krishna still recognizes dog. But maybe someone who finds the dog on the street, they'll say, oh, this dog has an owner. So similarly in the pool, they were like, oh, I don't think she has an owner. I don't think she's a devotee. So this helps us recognize each other, and it helps us recognize within ourselves that we are servants. We are the das. We are not God, actually. We are the servant of God. So we have Gopi Jivana Guru and then Jaina Singha.
So maybe I'm a little slow this morning, but this verse says that those who want to go to Brahmaloka are basically like to contaminated. But I feel like we read other verses speaking about how those in Brahmaloka is spiritual or self-realized or something like that.
Yeah, thank you for asking that. We read one of these texts. It says that a materialistic person, he can only go so far in his outer space travel, while a transcendentalist has free range kind of over this material dimension. I was thinking in certain video games, there's something called a mod, like a moderator. And so they don't have to play by the rules of the game. They can teleport to any location in the game. They can get any item they want. They can, they don't have to play the same game as us. So that's what the transcendentalist is like. We're in 2025, so we can use these analogies now. But the transcendentalist is like a moderator. That they don't have to play by the rules of these things. And to get to these higher dimensions, we were reading, only the great saints, the sages, attain these higher dimensions. So this yogi we're talking about, it seems that he gets purified. And it's purified when he passes through the fiery dimension. So not exactly sure, but still, even in these higher dimensions, you can still have very subtle material desires of monism, being one with God. We see with the Rasa Muni and the four Kumars weren't personalists before. I'm not saying that they had material desires, but is that
I just noticed maybe the key to this.
Right there at the top where it says if he maintains a desire. So you're speaking about how that you can become purified as you go higher and higher. But at the end of the day, it's up to you whether you allow that purification or if you just maintain these material desires.
Yeah, that's a wonderful point. I'm actually, I believe at the end of his journey, because he's on Brahmaloka, he returns to Vaikuntha. Correct me if I'm wrong. And he lives on this Satyaloka for, what was it? 15 gazillion, 15 gazillion years. But before that, he was on the planet Maharloka, where he was there for 4,300,000,000 years. So we don't want to take so long. That's a long time to be singing Kumbaya in the heavenly realm. We want direct path to Krishna. This is what happens when our consciousness is thinking about Krishna, but it's mixed. We still like our cushy bed, and we like Krishna. We still like, you know, to eat great things, and we like Krishna. Thankfully, Lord Chaitanya, he's so merciful that he gives us Krishna consciousness without making us be so austere. But this is what we're hearing about someone who's mixed in his transcendental pursuits. Yeah, bring that and then join us now. Oh, and I do the chart.
Hare Krishna. I'm thinking that even if we accept the Srimad Bhagavatam as truth, we've heard for so many years growing up in this culture the scientific truth or so-called truth, and it creates some conflict in our mind hearing about these billion, trillion year lifespans, life on different planets, mystic power. This is quite contrary to what we hear as truth today. So can you shed some light on this difficulty we go through?
Thank you for bringing up such a nice point. Yeah, I recall when devotees said to Srila Prabhupada, you know, I can't really get with the 4 heads and the 8 arms and the, you know, the flying palaces, and the bird airplanes and the other dimensions. And from what I understand, essentially Srila Prabhupada was saying, just chant Hare Krishna. So we are a scientific process. We're not a dogmatic process. So we are meant to experience what we believe in. So exactly, we should necessarily have full faith and full belief in these descriptions of other dimensions because we don't have tangible experience of them right now. If he said, you know, I fully believe in, you know, the life of, I would be a little concerned because you don't have any experience there. So the chanting, we can experience that. And the chanting is provided by the Srimad Bhagavatam. This process is provided by the Srimad Bhagavatam. So we gain faith in what we can experience and what is out of our reach, right now at least. We say, I don't understand that yet. I don't understand these other dimensions. Theoretically, I might understand. Because in our day-to-day experience, like we were talking about, there are wonderful places of material enjoyment and very difficult places. So we have a small experience of these things that are spoken of in Srimad Bhagavatam. But we have to say, okay, I'll get there one day, perhaps. What I do experience is chanting. What I do experience is this process. And just because I don't know every facet of the universe, just because I don't know all these things within this material realm, I shouldn't get worried. I shouldn't get caught up. I shouldn't get disturbed. So what I do know is what I feel. So let me hone in on that. And then also another part of your question to kind of, rebuttal the scientists is that we can perceive so little. We actually, on our own planet, we know so little about the ocean. You know, the ocean is so deep, so vast, yet we only know a tiny percentage of the ocean. There are infrared things that we can't see with our eyes. There's so few things that we can actually perceive. And so in science, we say, okay, if I can't understand that, let me create something to enhance my senses so that I can perceive it better. So let me get a microscope, zoom really in. I'm enhancing my eyes so that I can understand this thing. At the end of the day, some things are just so far beyond our sensory perception that science is actually so far behind. So this is why we take authority of ancient scriptures, because it's knowledge coming down to us. Instead of saying, okay, I see that dot very far away, let me build a telescope so gigantic that I can see it versus Krishna, he says, oh, that dot is the pole star. That dot is Drupaloka. And as science develops, we actually see a pattern that it's often correlating with what the Vedic literatures have already told us thousands of years ago. So you don't necessarily have to believe all of this, but you can have a little humility in that our senses actually are very weak to understand this material dimension. Our senses actually can't perceive, I'd say even 10% of what's actually around us at the current moment. So, yeah. Exactly. And who, Daniel?
Sure. Interesting. Yesterday, a lady at Krishna Lunch actually asked me a question about the book, Traveling to Other Planets. We call her the salad lady. And you all know she goes, do you guys, can you take the spinach out? Yeah. She said to me, she said, have you ever read that book, Traveling to Other Planets, Easy Journey to Other Planets? Have you ever read that before? I was like, yeah. She said, is there money on other planets? And I didn't have an answer for her. She kind of stumped me, so I just wanted to ask her if there was money. But I was thinking, because it says if you still have a material molded mind and other senses, you can still be able to explore the universe. So I figured if you have somewhat of a material consciousness still, that's kind of like what we bring a lot of times with us is the desire for currency and trades.
Yeah, so I guess I'll just briefly address it that I wouldn't be surprised if they had some form of currency, but I doubt it's as gross as our current situation where paper is, everything and it's always inflating and there's not actually gold backing it up to some extent. It's just like kind of this made up thing. There they have ornaments of gold and they have these yogic abilities to attain whatever they want. They can manipulate this material energy in extremely incomprehensible ways for our minds right now. So yeah, I can't actually tell you about it because my physical brain isn't big enough to understand that. Advaita Acharya?
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for this wonderful class. I had to notice that the title of this chapter is The Lord in the Heart, correct? So sometimes we also hear that all these planets and all these travels and levels of consciousness, they also experience in the microcosm of our heart. As a matter of fact, all the experiences are, they happen in our heart. And heart is a very powerful thing. It's a very vast thing. It's very supercharged. So I'm just reflecting on how purification of consciousness and particularly chanting Hare Krishna is really the only experience we can dovetail into any of these, including cities that are also there. Superheroes, that kind of borrowing, Marvel Universe, and that kind of borrowing from these kind of facts that are there in ancient texts, including the, what is that called? Shape shifters. Yeah. But on a high level, as Bhagavatam explains, in pure sense, heart is ready to bestow the greatest of gift, it's pure love, pure consciousness, pure Krishna. So we shouldn't forget that, all of these things in the region of microcosm, the heart, the Lord is there. But it's experienced by a medium of prescribed method of chanting Hare Krishna. That's for all the scientists who want to take the theory to the lab. You're welcome to do that.
So, let's have two more. So,
I know we're over, so I'm gonna make it brief. There's a devotee scientist from California named Madhavan Nakuri, who wrote this book within the last decade called The Big Bang and the Sages, which explores in detail with really interesting and surprising findings the correlations between modern scientific theories about the origin of the universe and statements, yeah, there it is, and statements and measurements about the universe cosmology from these literatures in India. So just wanted to plug that because it's yeah, really cool.
thank you. So, that's our wrap up. Thank you all.